it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far. But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it.
They tried to warn us, but back then, no one wanted to listen. Katt Williams, Terrence Howard, two men who stood in front of the Hollywood machine and refused to kneel. They paid the price in silence, in slander, in exile. But now, years later, their voices are echoing louder than ever. And at the center of that echo is Tyler Perry. The question isn't why now? It's how long have we been looking the other way? Because what once passed as jokes, rumors, and internet theories has erupted into lawsuits, shattered careers, and disturbing allegations that connect far more dots than anyone's ready to admit.
Well, I'm saying in my personal business, you can either do the dirt or you can know the dirt. I'm one of the chosen high-ranked know the dirt individuals, right? And so dirt responds as they should when the vacuum walks in. And so once 6 or 7 of you have made this same violation, it's my job as the king to show up and chastise thee. This is my job. I'm supposed to come in and restore order because that's my position. The fact that it's ignored by the clowns because they're all in the same frat, the job still needs to be done. And if God lets me know it's a good time for that, that's how I'm going to write it up and deliver it.
It started with the dress. Hollywood has a long history of twisting Black masculinity, not overtly, not all at once, but quietly, through costumes, through scripts, through jokes that chip away at dignity until all that's left is caricature. Katt Williams was the first to really call it out. He wasn't trying to go viral. He was trying to be heard. In interview after interview, he warned us why every time a strong Black male makes it in comedy, they put him in a dress, he asked. He wasn't laughing. He was signaling. He said the system had a test, one that filtered who was safe to keep around and who was too dangerous to empower. Dave Chappelle echoed it too. He walked away from $50 million because, in his words, something didn't feel right. He told stories of being pressured into wearing a dress for a sketch, and when he declined, people got nervous, uncomfortable. But Terrence Howard didn't walk away. He was pushed. This was a man at the top of his game. Hustle and Flow, Iron Man, Empire. He wasn't just a rising star, he was the star. But then the roles started changing. The scripts got strange. The expectations felt off. He was offered parts that seemed designed to test him, not his acting chops, but his limits. There were rumors he was asked to portray Smokey Robinson in a way that felt less like tribute and more like mockery. Marvin Gaye in a storyline that added layers of sexuality he didn't feel comfortable portraying. And then came the label. Hard to work with, a phrase that has killed more Black careers in Hollywood than any scandal ever could. Terrence spoke out, not in a press tour, but in pieces, in quiet interviews, in statements that got twisted and taken out of context. He once said, "I'd rather cut my lips off than kiss a man on screen." The media branded him a bigot, but what they didn't explore was why he said it. He wasn't spreading hate. He was setting boundaries. He was saying, I want to choose how I'm represented. And Hollywood said, then you don't belong here. The doors closed, and then the lawsuits began. In 2021, actor Derek Dixon filed a $260 million lawsuit against Tyler Perry and his studios.
Filed lawsuit accuses Tyler Perry of sexually assaulting an actor on one of the filmmaker's shows. Actor Derek Dixon has sued Perry for $260 million. He claims they met at the 2019 opening party for Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta. The lawsuit also includes screenshots of texts Dixon says he received from Perry that included sexual advances.
The details weren't vague. They were brutal. Dixon claimed he was groomed with promises, leading roles, creative control, future collaborations, but when he declined what he described as inappropriate advances from Perry, everything changed. The roles vanished. The meeting stopped. The silence grew louder. He described being groped, cornered, harassed, and when he didn't give in, his character was shot on screen 4 times in the chest. Symbolic? Maybe. Message sent? Absolutely. He said he was threatened, isolated, pressured by executives to just move on. Hush money was offered, he claimed, and when he refused, he was erased. Then came Christian Keys. His story came in the form of a video, a shaky, emotionally raw moment. He talked about waking up in bed after drinks to find someone powerful in bed next to him, uninvited, unannounced. He pushed the man off, freaked out, and tried to tell his truth. He never named names, but he didn't have to. Within days, the video vanished, deleted, cleaned from platforms, but the impact had already landed. The message was clear. Even when you don't name names, the industry knows, and they will make you pay. But Christian wasn't alone either. In 2013, a man named Joshua Soul broke into Tyler Perry's studio. He came through the ceiling, literally. The press called him deranged, obsessed, a stalker, but Soul claimed something else. He filed a $10 million lawsuit against Perry, alleging a prior relationship gone wrong. He said he was emotionally abused, manipulated, and then cast out when he didn't comply. According to him, he tried to speak up and no one listened. He said the studio didn't just blacklist him, it blacked out his life. No work, no voice, no peace. His lawsuit was dismissed, but his story, it lingered, because by then, the pattern was becoming harder to ignore. The Boondocks aired an episode in 2011 that hit a little too close to home. A character named Winston Jerome, flamboyant, rich, religious, ran a compound that eerily resembled Perry's real-life studio setup. The satire was bold, raw, and within days, the episode disappeared. Whispers began that Perry had personally intervened, called executives, pulled strings, threatened to withdraw content and funding. The Boondocks had mocked many celebrities, but this episode was the only one that mysteriously vanished. Why? Because it struck a nerve. It said the quiet part out loud. Fast forward to the Diddy firestorm, lawsuits, raids, witnesses, footage, and then Gene Deal, Diddy's former head of security, a man who claimed that tapes existed, tapes that included high-powered celebrities, secret parties, hidden cameras, receipts. He never gave names, but he said the names would shock the world. And one of those names, according to widespread rumor, was Tyler Perry. Still think this is all a coincidence? Let's talk about power. Not the red carpet kind, not the awards or box office numbers. I'm talking about the kind of power that can silence a room with a phone call, the kind of power that decides who eats and who starves in Hollywood. That's the kind of power Tyler Perry grew into.
I'm at a place in my life where I just want to make some people laugh and inspire and do good things and encourage people. And that's what I try to do all of my life, but there's an urgency in it now as I think about where we are in the world. So when I thought about an icon award, I go, okay, great, icon is something, but you gotta be careful when people start calling you an icon, because the hunters only shoot at the deer that they can see. So when you're an icon, you become a target. People are watching, trying to tear you down. There's always somebody at the bottom trying to tear you down when everybody else at the top is applauding, so you have to be careful.
And make no mistake, he earned much of it, rising from homelessness to billionaire status, carving out space for Black characters when no one else would, building a studio on land that once held Confederate barracks. That story matters, but so does what happened once he had the power, because that's when the pattern began to change. You start hearing the same things from different people. Words like control, fear, tension, background actors whispering about scenes that didn't feel right, crew members talking about NDAs handed out like candy, people too scared to speak unless they were off the lot and off the record. One actress, who asked to remain anonymous, said she left his studio in tears, not because of a role, but because of how she was treated when she asked to change a line that made her uncomfortable. She wasn't fired, but she was never called back. She said the message was clear. You can be talented, but you better not have boundaries. Another former employee recalled being told not to speak unless spoken to on set, not in a joking way, in a chilling, absolute kind of way. I felt like I was in a cult, he said. Everything revolved around one man. And yet, from the outside, the empire gleamed. Tyler Perry Studios was celebrated as a beacon of progress, a safe space for Black creatives. Politicians visited, Oprah praised it, actors lined up to get a role. But inside, the vibe wasn't always empowering. For some, it felt like walking on eggshells. You weren't just expected to act, you were expected to submit, to be grateful, to be silent. Because in this version of success, speaking up could cost you everything. That's what happened to Derek Dixon. That's what nearly happened to Christian Keys. That's what happened to others who never even made it to camera because they didn't play along. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Hollywood knows. They know who's doing what, who's making people uncomfortable, who's crossing lines. There's a reason the same names keep coming up, not just Tyler Perry, but others like him, because the system doesn't punish abusers. It protects them until the evidence is too loud to ignore.
Because in 30 years, I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets. So if you and a man was in a corner doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing,
you will tell it.
No, somebody come to tell me. I gather that, I value that, I'll pay for that. Come, tell me. I know so many things I shouldn't know, and they all know it.
That's what we're starting to see now. A shift, a slow, painful awakening. Because these stories are too similar to be coincidence. The promise of opportunity, the line that gets crossed, the punishment for saying no, the silence that follows. Rinse, repeat. For decades, people warned us. Katt Williams did it with comedy. Dave Chappelle did it with withdrawal. Monique did it with lawsuits. But we didn't listen. Not really, because listening meant questioning people we admire, people who broke barriers, people who look like us. And that's how the system survives, by hiding behind good deeds, by balancing pain with visibility, by saying, we gave you representation. Isn't that enough? But representation means nothing if the price is your dignity, your voice, your truth. Because what good is a seat at the table if you're not allowed to speak? You want to know how power protects itself? Look at who gets platformed and who gets erased. Look at who gets called a visionary and who gets called crazy. Look at whose names stay on the marquee and whose names disappear from the credits. Look at Tyler Perry and look at the men who tried to warn us. Then ask yourself, what kind of system needs to bury this many bodies just to keep one empire standing. Because when truth becomes dangerous and silence becomes the only currency, that's not a dream factory. That's a nightmare production. And the people waking up, they're done playing their roles. They're ready to rewrite the script, not just for justice, but for survival. Because the truth doesn't stay buried forever. It always finds the light. And now, it's shining on everything. Every lie, every cover-up, every sacrifice made in silence. This is the reckoning. This is the unraveling. And the people who were once mocked and muted, they're not waiting for permission anymore. They're not knocking on doors. They're kicking them down and they're bringing receipts. Because this time, they're not just talking, they're shouting. And finally, we're ready to hear them. Let's not forget, Tyler Perry is a master of storytelling. He's made a career out of turning trauma into triumph. His movies pull on heartstrings, and his characters often rise above impossible odds. That's what made him relatable, respected, revered. But there's something dangerous about a man who controls the story and punishes anyone who writes a different one. For years, his brand was built on salvation, faith, forgiveness, family. But what happens when the man writing redemption stories refuses to grant redemption to those who cross him? Multiple actors have quietly claimed they were iced out after standing up for themselves, not in dramatic confrontations, but in small ways, asking for a different wardrobe, requesting better pay, declining to attend a private meeting after hours. Suddenly, their phone stopped ringing. One young writer said she was flown out for a potential staff position at the studio. She was told it was her big break, but when she arrived, she said she found herself in a room alone with no paperwork, no producer, just Perry. She didn't stay long. She didn't get the job. She never worked in the industry again. And she's still too afraid to go public because she saw what happened to the others who did. Christian Keys was lucky to have fans support him, but not everyone gets that grace. For every man who goes viral with a confession, there are 10 who suffer in silence. Extras, assistants, bodyguards, people without the luxury of fame or followers. Hollywood has always been built this way. The glitz is a distraction. The red carpets and speeches are smoke and mirrors. What we don't see is the machinery underneath, greased with fear, run by gatekeepers, protected by money. It's not just Perry, but he's one of the few who made himself untouchable by cloaking his brand in community, in service, in God. How do you criticize someone who just donated to a women's shelter? How do you question a man who gave hundreds of Black actors their first role? You don't, because that's the brilliance of the mask. It makes you feel guilty for even asking the hard questions. And while you're distracted by the charity, the pain gets buried, but not forever, because something is shifting now. It's in the way people are revisiting old interviews, rewatching scenes, reading between the lines. It's in the questions fans are starting to ask, not just about Perry, but about the industry that props him up. Why do we keep hearing the same stories from different mouths? Why are so many people afraid to speak on the record? Why do we let fame erase accountability? And what kind of message are we sending to the next generation of artists when we say, don't rock the boat or you'll never work again? That's not mentorship, that's manipulation. And the irony is, Perry's entire brand was supposed to be about healing, about facing the truth, about breaking generational trauma. But what if he's just continuing the cycle? What if the man who claims to free others is holding the keys to their silence? We need to sit with that, because this story isn't just about one man's alleged abuses. It's about how easily power corrupts. It's about how much pain we're willing to ignore if it comes wrapped in inspiration. It's about what happens when we worship creators instead of holding them accountable. And it's about the stories we don't hear, the ones cut from the final script. You know, Tyler Perry once said, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. But what if the industry stops answering to accountability? What if we keep calling it success when it's really survival? What if the people we dismiss as angry, bitter, or broken are actually the ones telling the truth? Because here's the thing about truth. It doesn't go away when you ignore it. It waits. It builds. And then, like now, it explodes. We are watching a new chapter unfold in real time. Whistleblowers are becoming unavoidable. The internet doesn't forget. And audiences, they're getting smarter, louder, less forgiving. This isn't just a scandal. This is a mirror. And it's forcing us all to look at the industry, at ourselves, at the lies we accepted because they were easier than the truth. Katt Williams was mocked. Terrence Howard was erased. Christian Keys was silenced. Derek Dixon was dismissed. But they kept talking. And now we're listening. Not because it's convenient, but because it's necessary. Because if we keep turning our backs on the truth, we're no better than the system that silences it. So here's the final question. What kind of industry do we want? One built on power and silence, or one where truth actually matters? Because someone's always watching, and someone's always next. And whether it takes years or decades, truth always wins. You can bury it in lawsuits, in PR campaigns, in NDAs, but eventually it rises. And when it does, it shatters everything you thought you knew. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. And those who once whispered in the shadows, they're shouting now. And this time, we hear every word.